Early voting is set to begin. Property tax relief and billions of dollars in school bonds across North Texas are on the ballot. Special session border security bills are making their way through the state legislature, but taxpayer subsidies for students to attend private school isn't moving yet in the House. Israel-Hamas at war. Former President George W. Bush denounces Hamas, and we look at how college students at one university are reacting. I'm Jack Fink. Get your fix for Texas politics. Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas starts right now. Hello and welcome. We begin with the special session at the Texas Capitol where border security bills are making their way through the legislature. But it may be a different story on another key priority for Governor Greg Abbott, his push for spending taxpayer dollars so Texas students can attend private school. This week he headlined another rally and said his staff is working very closely with House Republicans on a bill.
We are closer than we've ever been. My team today, yesterday, the day before, last week, my team as we speak right now, in the governor's office, they're working with the Texas House of Representatives to hammer out a deal.
It's a deal that's never been reached in the Texas House, where rural Republicans have joined Democrats to sink a bill using taxpayer money so students can go to private or religious schools. As of Tuesday afternoon, the 8th day of the special session, a bill has not been filed in the Texas House, and the Senate's bill that passed last week has not been set for a hearing yet by a House committee. House Speaker Dave Phelan hasn't updated reporters about this since he spoke with them at the Capitol early last week.
We're meeting 2-3 times a day across the House spectrum, especially with these rural Republicans who want to get comfortable with this idea.
Republican lawmakers from rural areas have opposed legislation because they worry it will hurt their school districts financially. Josh Blank at the Texas Politics Project at UT Austin says the focus is on the rural Republicans.
Oh, they're under extreme pressure. Now, the question is really how they perceive that pressure. I mean, there's no doubt that significant outside interest groups are spending resources and really trying to put the pressure on them.
It is up to us to protect public education. Let us not rob our children of their rightful resources.
Democratic lawmakers continue to rally against the legislation. Representative Rafael Anchia told me Friday he believes opponents will win again.
I believe that the effort is to pick off members will fail. I do believe it will fail, and vouchers will be rejected again.
The governor told supporters not to get complacent.
The deal is not yet done. You need to be involved to make sure we get this across the finish line.
Speaker Phelan said last week the only way he believes this bill would pass in the House is if more money is given to public schools. Governor Abbott has said he would add school funding and teacher raises to the special session agenda only after his school choice measure passes in the House. And the House is considering border security bills passed by the Senate and its own legislation on the issue.
As a child, I was undocumented for about 8 years. And so when I see this legislation, I think about my history.
Now, Democrat Ana Hernandez of Houston is a state representative, and among those speaking out against a bill that would increase criminal penalties for those smuggling migrants and operating stash houses.
We are not for stash houses, but we are not for criminalizing our family members either. And so
Republican Representative Ryan Guillen said under Senate Bill 4, the state would establish a 10-year mandatory minimum prison sentence for the crimes.
The crimes of smuggling and operating a stash house are a major challenge to public safety, as smugglers not only take advantage of the smuggled individuals, but their conduct while smuggling also endangers everyday Texans.
One of Galveston County's constables, Paul Edinburgh, testified he supports the bills after he arrested a person caught driving 5 illegal immigrants.
Border Patrol was able to confirm one of them was a wanted child sexual predator.
But a lawyer who said her agency has represented 3,000 people since 2021 testified those arrested for human smuggling don't have any personal connections to the drug cartels.
Do I think that maybe 5 or, several people removed, the cartel has somehow been engaged in arranging for transportation? Absolutely. Do the people that end up getting arrested for this have any connection to the cartels? Almost universally, no.
While state lawmakers are currently focused on whether to use tax dollars to send students to private school, the previous two special sessions were all about providing Texans property tax relief. And now voters will get the chance to approve one of the measures passed. Early voting in the November 7th election begins Monday. Among the 14 statewide propositions on the ballot, Prop 4. Approving it would raise the homestead exemption for school district property taxes from $40,000 to $100,000 for most homeowners. And let's look at some of the other propositions. Prop 6 would use $1 billion to create a water fund. That fund would go toward things like fixing our state's aging pipes and finding more water resources. Proposition 7 would set aside $5 billion for the maintenance and modernization of Texas electric grid, including offering low-interest loans for building new gas-fueled power plants. And Prop 9 would give retired teachers a cost of living increase through the teacher retirement system. Depending on which county you live in, there are also some local measures that you'll have to vote on. In Denton County, there are two major school district bond elections. Prosper ISD is a $2.8 billion bond package on the ballot, and it includes Proposition C, which asks voters to approve more than $102 million to expand existing athletic facilities and build a new stadium that would seat 8,000 people. Louisville ISD has a $1.2 billion bond package on the ballot. Proposition F, if approved, would allocate $20 million towards stadium improvements. These are just a few of the ballot items, and if you want to see a detailed list of what you'll be voting on, just head to the election website for the county you vote in to see your sample ballot. This year, there has been a lot of political friction on major issues in Texas between Republican leaders at the Capitol. From property tax relief to Attorney General Ken Paxton's impeachment trial, there's been a real rift between Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and Speaker Dade Phelan. Another Republican, Senator Ted Cruz, told us it's gotten his attention and he's concerned about it.
Yeah, listen, I'm very worried about it.
U.S. Senator Ted Cruz told me he's noticed the deep tensions between Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and Speaker Dade Phelan.
What I don't like seeing, you're right, the Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker of the House are in open warfare. That's not good for Texas. It's not good for the Republican Party. What I'm urging is both sides, put down your guns.
Those tensions between them flared right after Attorney General Ken Paxton was acquitted at his impeachment trial, then ignited again this week after a Texas Tribune report that Jonathan Stickland, head of the Defend Texas Liberty PAC, met with an avowed anti-Semite and Nazi sympathizer. The PAC has given millions of dollars to Republicans, including Patrick. In a statement, Phelan said, quote, "There is no excuse to keep tainted funds from an organization that provides a platform for hate mongers, sexual predators, racists, and Nazi sympathizers. I expect him," meaning Patrick, "to lead the way in redirecting these funds." Patrick responded, quote, "I didn't think even Dade Phelan would stoop this low. He has now absolutely hit rock bottom. His latest political stunt is disgusting, despicable, and disingenuous. I am calling on Dade Phelan to resign."
And I'm worried that we could blow school choice in Texas because of this civil war within the Republican Party.
Senator Cruz also told me he's helping Republicans in Texas to pass a bill that would give taxpayer-funded subsidies so students can attend private schools. And he's getting involved in Republican primary races, too.
Well, I sit down and I have my team prepare an Excel spreadsheet. And on that spreadsheet is every vote that a state rep or a state senator has cast on school choice.
Cruz said if Republicans voted for taxpayer-funded education savings accounts, he'll support them.
But if you haven't, if you voted against school choice, the chances of my supporting you are essentially zero.
He said he'll endorse their primary opponent instead. And here are some other political headlines right now. Former Tarrant County Elections Administrator Hyder Garcia has announced he will become the new Elections Administrator for Dallas County in December after Michael Scarpello retires. One of the Paxton's attorneys at his impeachment trial, Mitch Little, has announced he's challenging Republican State Representative Kronda Timish of Denton County in the March primary. We are still months away from the primaries, but we're getting a better idea of how fundraising is going for Senate and congressional candidates. In the race for U.S. Senate in Texas, incumbent Ted Cruz reported more than $3 million in contributions from July through September. On the Democratic side, Dallas Congressman Colin Allred outraised and outspent Cruz and his Democratic opponents during that same time period, reporting more than $4.5 million in contributions and $2.5 million in spending. Democratic State Senator Roland Gutierrez, whose district includes San Antonio and Uvalde, raised $630,000 in contributions, and Democratic Texas Representative Carl Sherman of DeSoto raised about $83,000. We're also closely watching the race for the Texas 32nd Congressional District, and that district covers northeastern Dallas County and is currently represented by Senate candidate Colin Allred. In the period from July through September, Dallas surgeon Dr. Brian Williams led other candidates in fundraising, reporting more than $350,000 in contributions. Democratic State Representative Julie Johnson raised $307,000, and Texas Representative Retta Bowers of Rowlett, another Democrat, raised about $25,000. Now to the Israel-Hamas war and reaction here in North Texas. Former President George W. Bush denounced Hamas and its deadly terror attack against Israel and gave his support to the Jewish state. The former president said while he doesn't know for sure whether Iran helped Hamas with the attack, it does have a history. He spoke at his presidential library in a forum with Axios.
Iran's been pretty good at using surrogate terrorist groups, Hezbollah being the key one, of course. And therefore, the idea of using somebody else to achieve their objective doesn't surprise me. I never thought we should try to accommodate Iran in any way, shape, or form. I always felt the objective ought to be to prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon, to prevent a cataclysmic event in the Middle East. And these are the kind of people that if you show softness, they will take advantage of it.
This week, Senator John Cornyn spoke on the Senate floor and fully backed Israel and condemned the Hamas terrorist organization for its deadly attacks on Israelis.
We've witnessed evil in its purest form. There's no excusing, no equivocating, no explaining the actions of Hamas. It's not trying to protect the Palestinian people or promote freedom. Hamas' singular goal is to annihilate the Jewish people and wipe Israel off the map.
As the violence in the Middle East reaches a critical point, so does the rhetoric on public displays at a North Texas college campus. Spirit rocks have been a popular way for UT Dallas students to express themselves about almost anything. But as J.D. Miles reports, the dueling messages about the Israel-Palestinian conflict has some concern that it's gone too far.
Whether it's welcoming new students or just making a personal statement with spray paint, the Spirit Rocks have been a visible presence for years on the UTD campus. But in the past 2 weeks, the three large stones have become a tense platform for politics, with competing views about the violence in the Middle East, as the student newspaper has documented. But the words someone painted this week have sparked outrage.
To see Zionism equals Nazism is deeply hurtful.
A community organization that represents Jewish UTD students is demanding the school president meet with them over their concerns.
To understand their experiences of the past week and to come out and denounce divisive anti-Semitic rhetoric.
The Spirit Rocks are basically like to show how the UTD students feel about current situations.
Yusuf Wadi is a Palestinian UTD student who says anyone has the right to paint over anything they don't agree with.
It's more of to bring other students awareness of how their fellow, their peers feel.
The university declined to comment on the controversy. The rules posted online say Spirit Rock paintings must be in good taste. Keep in mind what is painted on the rock reflects on you and/or your organization. Some students have covered up the divisive murals with messages promoting love and peace. There's no indication tonight that UTD officials are going to intervene in the displays here. There have also been some reports of students camping out by the rocks to quickly cover up and paint over any messages with opposing views. In Richardson tonight, J.D. Miles, CBS News, Texas.
Coming up, we go in depth on funding for Texas public schools. Our interview with Democratic State Representative James Tallarico. When Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas returns.
Right now, state lawmakers are focusing on whether taxpayer money should be used to send students to private school. But have you ever wondered how Texas public schools are funded? It starts at the local level. Schools are mostly funded with property taxes. When homes and businesses are valued higher, schools in that area get more money. And if property taxes aren't enough, The state steps in to cover the rest. So the more a district earns through property taxes, the less it gets from the state. That means when our economy is booming, property values rise, schools get more cash through local taxes, and the state kicks in less money. Basically, schools are funded based on how wealthy their communities are. Now let's talk numbers. Right now, Texas guarantees school districts a little more than $6,100 per student, about $4,000 less than the national average. And some districts say they're not getting enough cash. Senate Bill 1 would free up state funds to help parents pay for private schools. But the bill's opponents say the program will cause public schools to lose students, and that could leave school districts with less money than they have now.
Welcome back. Democratic state lawmakers have rallied for more public school funding and against the governor's push for using taxpayer money so students can attend private school. We spoke with Democratic Representative James Tallarico of Austin about both issues.
Before I was a legislator, I was a public school teacher. I taught 45 kids in one classroom, and I was a middle school teacher, so that's 45 middle schoolers in one classroom. There weren't enough seats for all my students, and so I had kids sitting on the air conditioning unit in the richest country in human history, in one of the richest states in that rich country, kids sitting on the air conditioning unit. Texas is 43rd in the nation in per student education funding. Texas schools are $40 billion behind the national average, and Texas teachers are making less than they did 10 years ago. We have a school funding emergency in this state, and it is the fault of our state government. So we're introducing the Fully Fund Our Future Act, which will catch Texas up to the national average in per student education funding. It'll give every Texas teacher a $15,000 pay raise. It'll hire more counselors, lower class sizes, and fund more programs for more students. We should pass this plan instead of a private school voucher scam that will siphon off billions of dollars from our already underfunded public schools.
So how much does this cost totally, what you are proposing?
So Texas is $40 billion behind the national average in per student education spending. Our plan will get Texas to the national average.
And so, I mean, is there a total cost of this bill? I mean, when they do a fiscal note, what's that number going to be?
That is filling that $40 billion gap. So it's catching our state up to the national average in per student funding.
And so how does this compare to what the state is currently spending? I mean, obviously, the state Senate passed its version of a school public financing bill last week. And so how does it compare as far as how much more are you coming in from what they do or from where, you know, the total budget is now?
Well, Greg Abbott is trying to bribe the Texas legislature to pass his private school voucher scam, and he's offering crumbs to our starving schools. The Senate school finance bill is laughable. It doesn't even catch us up to inflation. It doesn't even catch us up to 2019 levels. It is wholly inadequate for the needs in our schools across our state. Our plan, the Fully Fund Our Future plan, will take care of our neighborhood schools. It'll fully fund our schools and our teachers and our students, which is what we desperately need in communities across Texas.
So if I hear you correctly, this will mean that the state spends $40 billion on public schools. I'm just trying to, you know, figure out the correct.
That's right. So we have, as a state, we have $46 billion sitting in our state's bank account, just gathering dust. It's a surplus and our rainy day fund, $46 billion. We're proposing that we take $40 billion of that and invest it in the next generation so that we can all thrive, so that our economy can thrive, and ultimately so that our democracy can thrive.
You want to increase teacher salaries, and this gives teachers a raise. The legislation I saw filed calls for a one-time $15,000 bonus. Is that wrong?
Yeah, that's incorrect. In the second year of our plan, teachers will get a $15,000 pay raise that will then be funded through the basic allotment and will be sustainable in the long run.
Okay, so first year it's the bonus. Second year it's a $15,000 raise.
That's right, because we're already in the first fiscal year. You know, I was a public school teacher in San Antonio ISD. I had colleagues of mine who drove Ubers at night to make extra money. I had colleagues who sold their own blood plasma to make extra money. Teaching is the most important profession because without it, there would be no other professions. And we are nickel and diming those professionals in our communities. We have teachers leaving the profession at a record rate because they can't afford to be teachers anymore.
The increase in the per student allotment that school districts are paid. Your bill raises that from $6,160 to $8,947. How did you come up with that figure? And is this something that, how long has the state had this $6,160 allotment?
Since 2019, the last time we invested in our public schools. This plan will transform our public education system in the state of Texas. It'll fully fund our neighborhood schools, and it will get us to the national average. That's the goal of this bill. All of the funding in this bill is aligned to one goal, and that's getting Texas to the national average in per student education spending.
Up next on Eye on Politics, we'll discuss the negotiations over school funding and using tax dollars to send students to private schools with the research director of the Texas Politics Project at UT Austin. Republican lawmakers at the Texas Capitol remain divided over whether taxpayer money should be used to pay for some students to attend private school. It comes as the third special session is underway and as top legislative leaders aren't getting along with each other. We spoke with Dr. Josh Blank, research director at the Texas Politics Project at UT Austin, about these issues and the U.S. Senate race in Texas. On that topic just yet. Should people be surprised?
I don't think so. I mean, the reality is that the voucher push has always been a heavier lift in the Texas House than the Texas Senate. The Texas Senate passed a voucher bill during the regular session. The Texas Senate has passed voucher or voucher-like bills in the past, and they have regularly died in the Texas House. So the fact that the Texas House hasn't moved quickly on this isn't surprising in and of itself and isn't really necessarily indicative of the final outcome. It's just reflective of the fact that really impact the finances of public schools, not until the governor says so.
Right. And the governor said last week that if and only if his school choice plan were to pass, that he would expand the call to include school financing, but particularly teacher raises, et cetera. And the Senate passed its version of that bill, Senate Bill 2, without the governor expanding it and placing it on the call. And so, you know, it really begs the question, because the governor said that they are negotiating with the House. Phelan said that they are negotiating with the governor's office. How much pressure are these rural Republicans under?
Oh, they're under extreme pressure. Now, the question is really how they perceive that pressure. I mean, there's no doubt that significant outside interest groups are spending resources and really trying to put the pressure on them to support our voucher bill. At the same time, the fundamental dynamics that have led Democrats, but also many rural Republicans to oppose vouchers in the past haven't really changed yet. And to your point, you know, to the extent that the governor is in negotiations with the House, you know, the reality is the House is negotiating with the governor, the House is negotiating with the Senate, but this is at a time when I think trust between really does depend on the program and how people view it.
And, you know, the other thing that you have going on right now, as the third special session is happening, is this animosity between the House Speaker, Dave Phelan, and the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, and to some extent, Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, who was just acquitted at his impeachment trial. And so I'm wondering what impact any of this may or may not have on whether this bill gets passed.
I think it adds to the pressure that some rural Republicans who are opposed to vouchers might feel. You know, if you look at those votes and you look in the House at those Republicans who both voted to impeach the Attorney General and cast a vote earlier during the regular session in favor of prohibiting public funds to be used on a voucher program, those are the members who are feeling, I think, the most pressure out in the political world. Those are the members who are being targeted by outside groups. And there, it's not so much that either of those issues in and of themselves are, you know, damning for those members, but the accumulation.
Before we go, the Texas Rangers Houston Astros battle in the ALCS is giving Texans something to cheer and brag about. Governor Abbott posted on X, quote, "A great night for baseball in Arlington. I think Texas has a pretty good shot at the World Series this year." Let's go Rangers. That's all for Eye on Politics this week. I'm Jack Fink. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you again next week. You're watching CBS News Texas.